Imagine working in a job where every decision you make can impact thousands of lives, employees, customers, families, and you're held responsible for it all. CEOs sit in this seat every day, making calls that balance profit, innovation, and public trust. But when those decisions backfire or create resentment, frustration often points straight to the top. So, what's really going on here? And why is public frustration often directed at CEOs? Stay with me as we explore what CEOs do, why they face so much pressure, and what it all means for us. Now, the role of a CEO is a lot more complex than many people might think. At its core, a CEO, or Chief Executive Officer, is responsible for setting the vision of the company, making high-stakes decisions, and ultimately ensuring the organization is successful. They're often seen as the face of the company, which is why they get so much attention, good or bad. But what does that really involve on a day-to-day basis? Well, first, financial responsibility. CEOs are tasked with making sure the company is profitable, which means improving operations, cutting costs where it makes sense, and finding new ways to grow the business. For a lot of companies, especially ones with shareholders, profits are the ultimate priority. And that's where things can get tricky. When a CEO makes decisions to cut expenses, maybe through layoffs or outsourcing, it's not always viewed in a positive light, even if those decisions are necessary for the company's survival. For example, if you've ever heard news about a company cutting jobs but still giving its executives bonuses, it creates this immediate frustration. People start to feel like leaders are out of touch, even though there's usually more to the story. And beyond profits, CEOs are also responsible for steering the company ethically and transparently. This might mean making sure the company is reducing its environmental footprint, treating employees fairly, and earning customer trust. You see, we live in a time where people expect businesses to do more than just sell products. They want companies to contribute to society. But on the flip side, when companies fall short, maybe through unsafe working conditions or deceptive pricing, it's the CEO who shoulders the blame, and often for good reason. And speaking of blame, let's talk about public perception for a moment. CEOs in industries like healthcare, energy, or finance often have to make decisions that impact people in really personal ways. Take healthcare, for instance. If a CEO pushes for innovations like AI-driven claim approvals that might help the company run more efficiently. But if those changes result in people being denied coverage, the public backlash can be huge. It doesn't matter if the CEO had good intentions, because when a decision affects someone's health or livelihood, it feels personal. But it's not just healthcare. Look at energy companies during times of rising gas prices or financial institutions during economic crises. When people are struggling to afford essentials or worried about their futures, it's easy to direct that anger toward the person in charge. CEOs, by their very role, become the symbolic target of frustration. They're seen as the ones holding all the power, even though the systems behind those decisions are much more complex. And here's where it gets even more complicated: crisis management. A CEO has to step up when the company faces controversy, economic downturns, or public health emergencies. So, why does this all matter? Why are CEOs becoming such visible targets today? Part of it comes down to trust, or rather, the lack of it. There's a growing sense of frustration with large corporations and institutions. People feel like they're being left behind, that profits are being prioritized over people. And when you see news about skyrocketing CEO salaries, executive bonuses, or big decisions that negatively impact workers or customers, it creates a sense of unfairness. CEOs represent the face of these companies, so they often become the focal point for anger and accountability. It's important to recognize that the role of a CEO isn't just about making the company successful in the short term. They also have to think about the long-term vision, where the company is going, how it's innovating, and how it's giving back to the community. But here's the challenge. Balancing all of that while keeping shareholders happy, customers satisfied, and employees motivated isn't easy. It's like trying to juggle 3 balls while walking a tightrope. One misstep, and everything could fall apart. Take UnitedHealthcare as an example. Under Brian Thompson's leadership, the company adopted new technologies that made operations more efficient. But some critics argued that those changes led to unfair claim denials, causing public resentment. When decisions at the top feel disconnected from the people they impact, it's not surprising that anger can boil over. And sadly, as we've seen, that frustration can sometimes turn personal, which is a sobering reminder of just how difficult this role can be. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Should CEOs do more to bridge that gap? And honestly, yes. Transparency, ethical leadership, and a commitment to balancing profits with social impact can go a long way. At the same time, as a society, we need to recognize that CEOs operate within complex systems. It's not always one person calling the shots. It's a web of pressures, expectations, and stakeholders. Ultimately, the role of a CEO is about more than delivering profits. It's about leading with responsibility, understanding the impact of decisions on real people, and building trust with employees, customers, and the community. In today's world, where tensions are high and trust is low, that's a tough job to have. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think CEOs are doing enough to balance profits with social responsibility? What changes would you like to see in how companies are run? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for sticking with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.